Hello and welcome to the Analysys Mason podcast. My name is Christopher Baugh. I am a partner here at the company and also head of our space research practice. Delighted to welcome you today. What is a very important topic, space industry and predictions for the year ahead into 2026. The topic is massive. Space is changing rapidly, daily, almost hourly now. So we used our entire teams, consulting and research in the company and Analysys Mason to formulate our predictions. Today, we have our most senior space team in the company to talk through them and some of the broader themes and maybe some specifics too. A lot to discuss. So let me introduce the speakers we have today first, and then we'll go into more of a roundtable, free-flowing type of discussion. First, we have Antoine Grenier. He's a partner also at the company, Analysys Mason, and he's the head of our space consulting portion of the company. We have Mr. Lluc Palerm, who is a research director at Analysys Mason and works within the research space practice focused on satellite communications. So Antoine's coming at it from finance and strategy. Lluc's going to come at it from the satellite communications angle. Last but not least, Mr. Claude Rousseau, also a research director in the space research practice. Claude looks at sort of the upstream side of things, so the infrastructure build, some of the applications coming from space, emerging space things. So with these three speakers, we'll cover the full gamut of space predictions into the future. But I want to start broadly and open this up a bit to you all because we have a lot to cover. Lluc, you're first. I'm looking at 2026. We made a lot of predictions and we can refer to the piece that we have on our website. But generally speaking, 2026, fill in the blank, is the year of what? What do you think will happen in your pouch?
I think that 2026 is going to be the year of adoption. We have been discussing for several years now the satellite telco integration with some early examples, but it's clear to me that 2026 will be an inflection point in this trend, and many more telcos, many more MNOs will see satellite as a complement to their technologies and will increasingly adopt satellite into their networks.
Okay, year of adoption. So beyond I guess even the naysayers for things like D2D, direct to device, for broadband, the momentum is real, the inflection point is real, I guess you would see this year.
Yes, exactly. We see the consumer interest going up. We see satellite now being used in new use cases for extending connectivity into remote areas, telcos using satellite for resiliency. So yeah, it's clearly accelerating the growth in the satellite industry, but also having a bigger and bigger impact on the bottom lines for the telcos.
Very good. Again, we're going to treat this as a roundtable. So if any questions or inputs from the rest of the team, feel free to jump in. This is a big topic and one that I think has a lot of overhang with everything else. So Antoine.
Yeah, well, to be fair, I was about to ask, Amazon Leo is expected to launch this year. So in terms of adoption, that could be quite massive.
Yes, actually, we are forecasting very rapid growth on satellite broadband. So we are seeing Starlink almost doubling the subscribers this year, going from 9 million to 17 million and at the end of the year. Amazon Leo, of course, is ramping up launches. So they're going to have an impact as well on the market. But yeah, it's still early stages for Amazon Leo, even for AST as well. These two constellations are promising a lot and will definitely have an impact, but maybe 2026, it's a bit early to see a huge impact from them.
Excellent. Wonderful. So yeah, Amazon Leo, great point. Almost a new constellation. The new constellation was announced from Blue Origin. A lot of these things will take, obviously, adoption and implementation. We had Open Cosmos getting access to spectrum, launching a few satellites, getting access to that world. So adoption/deployment year, it's just an absolutely bananas time for news and cycles with the constellations business. So Antoine, to your side, you're looking at a lot of things. You work on a transaction advisory strategy, sort of regulatory policy work, and anything that touches space. It's your world. What do you think the year ahead looks like?
Yeah, the year ahead looks very busy for sure. I was about to say something different. How does 2026 looks like? In my terms, it would be adoption for sure, as Lluc says. I'd say be the year of scaling. It's I can see a lot of transactions that are pushing through early players that are not startups anymore by a long way. They are large scale ups, with very strong backlogs that are now ramping up. And for that, obviously, they need more funding, which they are getting quite often. So I would say that's the year of scaling for me, 2026. Beyond that, obviously, some of the predictions that we have for 2026 relate to how the sector is going to reconfigure. We expect much more consolidation in the supply chain of Satcom, for instance, a lot of mid-market firms coming together, even potentially an alternative to Bromo, as we said, in Europe. The level of funding in Europe from public institutions is changing dramatically between Ministry of the Defense, ESA, obviously, plus 30% on the budget itself. So that is all leading to not just a reckoning, but something quite different for Europe. Even US players looking at Europe now as an area of investment. And we're seeing quite a bit of that. So yeah, I mean, and together with this, different types of investors are now looking at the sector from a sort of more like deep tech ventures are looking into the space domain as another vertical of growth. Different types of VC players as well. Even debt is now starting to come much more critically into the market. So that's good for everyone. And as many have discussed before already, the potential SpaceX IPO later this year could have quite a lot of ripple effects. So I'm really looking forward to that.
That was actually reading my mind. It's the elephant in the room, the SpaceX IPO, and we've answered a lot of press inquiries on it. We've seen a lot of articles written on it. That ripple effect seems to be tremendous should it occur in the finance transaction world. This opens the door potentially or closes on. So I don't know. There are lots of ways to look at it if it does transpire. Would you agree? Disagree?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's hard to predict. Obviously, we've got particular views in particular scenarios. A lot of public stocks in space have already sort of anticipated that in some way because they've been on the up. So that would suggest that a lot of people are seeing space as a broader areas of investment. So that's the halo effect of the SpaceX potential IPO, but in advance. Now, when it really happens, it's going to create a juggernaut. It is already a very successful and large firm, but yes, that could unleash much more investment. And yes, I mean, who knows precisely where Starlink and SpaceX is going to put that potential investment later on. There are many different layers of growth that they could lay out into their plan, and the discussion is going to be all about that. For sure, we'll be tracking the information that's going to come out of the SpaceX IPO filings. That would be absolutely amazing. Finally, we will have very precise data on SpaceX and Starlink, and that I think every analyst around the world is looking forward to that.
Absolutely. Let's do the Claude now. Claude, we haven't heard from you yet. You cover the space infrastructure side of things. A lot of, you're based in Europe, but we cover the world. We're from your patch. What does the next year ahead look like? Where do you make a bold prediction, right? Of what's going to
I'll
happen?
kind of leave from what was said by Antoine about Europe. I think that Europe is going to be more important than ever. I think the investments here are also increasing. Fortunately, as mentioned by Antoine, we're also seeing more deep tech funds interested in the space business. We've seen some large fundraising last year from EnduroSat, others like Loft Orbital. And I'll say that one word that we think is going to probably put a stamp on 2026 is control. And what I mean by that is government entities wanting more control over their own infrastructure. We're seeing that more and more. And despite, as you said, announcements from others to put constellations up there on the commercial side, you see IRIS-2 European program that's still forging ahead. Italy wants their own constellation. We just saw an announcement from Sweden who want their own satellites, Earth observation satellites. So I believe the word on infrastructure is going to be control and more of that from governments. So government today is becoming a very, very important market for everyone, not just legacy, traditional players, but also startups. And I believe that will have an impact on the whole year because it's a very interesting market to address, usually traditionally more difficult, but the business models also associated with addressing that market, such as satellite as a service, are also becoming more and more adopted. So that's, I believe, what will characterize 2026.
Okay, Claude. Absolutely. I think in sovereignty and control and all of those matters, it seems like that's the biggest buzzword of all, sovereignty. But
And budget are going up too. Don't forget budgets in Germany, 41 billion they've allocated to space. ESA had a record budget allocation this year. So those budgets are going to have to be spent. So that's a really good opportunity for the industry.
it seems like everyone around is thinking about strategies, whether they go it alone, partnership, et cetera. And that's kind of where we've been seeing a lot of our clients on research and consulting sort of building those strategies. So it's a very interesting time. I want to stick with you for a second. You did make one prediction in your team that was an interesting one that we're hearing a lot. Even Elon's talking a lot about it, which is data centers in space and AI.
Yeah.
And we've seen, even I saw Davos yesterday, he was talking about this is the thing, right? This is where we're headed, and taking all of that infrastructure off the Earth, putting it in space. You made a prediction. I think it's still early days. I think we'd have to talk about it a little bit here. Can you give that prediction?
We're going to talk about that with Antoine as well, because it's a question of investment. When you are looking at data centers in space, you're looking at, in a way, things that have been done on satellites for years. In other words, compute in space. But in this instance, it's more like, how do we apply what's being done on Earth to space eventually? That's going to take a while. It's going to be a long road. But there's certainly a lot of engineers that have looked at this, are looking at this. And what we believe will happen is there'll be first, priorities, use cases, storing, for example, for sovereignty control of data, and maybe for Earth observation as well. We've already seen some of this, but also I believe the push from Elon and others is to see how they can leverage AI today in all the infrastructure that they're putting together. And space data centers is one of those, where AI is also seen as providing more for less and adding value to end users and to customers, and for in space operation as well as on the ground. I'm not sure though that space DCs will be getting funded to the level that they are here on Earth, but we know that there's, of course, power problems, there's cooling problems for data centers here on Earth. If that can scale in space, then there'll be likely a business case. But I think I'll let Antoine also comment on this, because he's also heard from investors about this.
Yeah, Antoine, please.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Claude, for. I mean, this prediction is quite interesting. I agree. About a year ago, we did a quick survey of a panel of investors, and a pretty large number of them said, "Okay, if that existed, orbital data centers, and if it were technically feasible, then they would definitely invest in it. I mean, why not? I mean, as long as it works." Quite a few of them said, "Well, we'll wait for someone like Amazon to do it first." That was in January last year. What happened in the autumn, with almost everyone getting out of stealth mode, suddenly Google, obviously Starlink, Amazon, all coming to the fore and saying, yes, okay, orbital data centers is the next big thing. That was quite a strange moment when everyone realized that's probably a direction of travel that's interesting, and that would attract investors if it is feasible again. On the surface, it's clear that there are plenty of limitations, as Claude is saying, and now people are really seeing the scale of that. There are limitations as well in space. So the question is, I mean, those limitations on Earth, I mean, can you replace them with others in space that you can solve for? I think that's going to be a question that people will grapple with in 2026. It's amazing what engineering progress people have made. It's the usual investment paradox. I mean, things that you think are happening tomorrow may happen much later, and the things that you think are going to happen much later, actually they happen a bit earlier. So the human brain is not really well wired to think about those things. It's quite well documented. So maybe orbital data centers is one of those things. So we'll be tracking that development, I guess.
Absolutely. High on the hype meter, 100%. It's kind of that crossover, and we've been spending a lot of time, and you've been spending a lot of time on this crossover point. This is the inflection point. I use words like mainstream. We're here, we're now, and you're covering a lot of that. And orbital data centers from an infrastructure and applications perspective, sure. But let's come to the ground for a second. And you've made some predictions. You follow a lot with direct to device. What makes 26, it is the year of adoption, but why? The why piece. What is it that that makes this? Is it Starlink driving it first and foremost and everyone behind? Or what is the year? What does it look like ahead?
No, definitely. So, I mean, similar to data centers. So, for many years, the industry in general was skeptical about D2D, but now that's proven. It works. There are several players, Starlink, Skylo, that are offering actual D2D services to smartphones. So, it's a proven technology. It's obviously still in very early stages and it needs to evolve, but it's only messaging. But our survey result, the survey that we run every year, demonstrate that those basic services are very well received among subscribers. 76% of the respondents in our annual survey show interest on those services. We also know from that survey very well that those services can have a big impact on retention, on attracting subscribers from competitors, and that has real money value for MNOs. Um, Obviously, T-Mobile and many others are now deploying these D2D services, and it's a real um, case where they see benefits of deploying this. So we will see more and more MNOs launching these D2D services and having a real impact on their revenues by enhancing retention, capturing subscribers from competitors, and we expect that those that implement D2D services in 2026 will have a 1% revenue increase just coming from these basic D2D services. If we think about it 2 years, 3 years from now, when broadband services, when data services become available for D2D services, that can even be higher. And that's where we see the D2D market scaling to a multi-billion opportunity.
Yeah, it's just remarkable how much interest and increasing interest there is in the topic and strategy behind it. But so absolutely. I'll tell the audience, we made 15 predictions this year, supersized predictions documents. So we can't cover them all. They're extensive. They're as much as we could put. I'd love to have even more space. But I want to go to one critical question for you all and think as we end the session today. We've talked today about a lot of new things, exciting things, AI, data centers, constellations. Let's talk about the industry, that I say traditional, sort of legacy business, the operators, the ground segment. For all of you, you're covering it from different angles. What does that look like in the year ahead? With all this new stuff happening, new constellations, here's Blue Origin with another constellation. Here's, I mentioned Open Cosmos, others. What does the year look like ahead for whether it's operators, ground segments, services, infrastructure? And to maybe starting with you, we're fielding a lot of these requests, and you mentioned transactions, strategy, REIT sort of thought, many of them. What does the year look like for that part of the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone is reconsidering their positions. Some have started that like quite a long while ago, still implementing. So what they're looking for is more like, how do I accelerate? What sort of twists and turns do I need to take? Some are sort of have been sheltered in some way from the change and are just going through the journey right now. On the telco side, we see a lot of people starting to think really deeply now about direct to device and how to include non-terrestrial communications into their own fabric beyond just a gimmick for their subscribers. Some very large players are looking at what does that imply in terms of their own business model and how they can leverage that. So there is a lot of activity this year that Lluc is covering a lot, but that results in different corporate structures and different ventures and a range of JVs have come to the fore recently with Vodafone Satco and with AST in Europe as an example. I mean, there are some others. This is really redistributing the cards, I think, in the wider telco ecosystem. Obviously, we're still talking about a small part of the telco ecosystem being Satcom, but it's playing an increasing part. And the result of that is also the space sector itself is changing fundamentally. As Claude was saying, the pivot towards defense, towards critical infrastructure and the need to own and control it is fundamental. And that is seen across the entire telecoms and satcoms and other sectors of space. And if you launch, you need to have your launch and you need to have your spaceports and all infrastructure that builds upon it is impacted. So we see holistic movements in a way, but from, as you say, Chris, from a constellation of very different positions for each of our clients, and they will need to consider it differently.
Yeah, you mentioned the word pivot. That seems like the word of the day always right now is constantly defense, D2D, integration. Well said, Antoine. Thank you. Lluc, you want to add on that, I think?
Yeah, I think that for traditional players, it's a difficult market right now. They need to pivot differently. Obviously, that industry is changing a lot with a new paradigm in terms of supply, a new paradigm in terms of pricing, and they need to adapt. There are a few areas where they will continue to be strong in terms of being closer to the end user, the local governments, the regional governments, those for regional players, implementing services, obviously taking care of those sovereign interests that we have been mentioning today. But I think that they also need to be a bit more willing to take risk in investing in technology, and it's obviously hard to match the pace of innovation of Starlink, Amazon Leo, and all these players, but they definitely need to play a bigger role in all the technology development cycle for satellite technologies, for sure.
Absolutely agreed with you 100%. Last but not least, Claude, your side in infrastructure. What are the legacy builders, the manufacturers, integrators, what do they need to do?
They need to follow the money. And that money right now is going to be in government. And they also need to realize that some of their coming new space manufacturers are here for real. They're no longer just, like pet projects or PowerPoint presentations. And in doing this, I think they've been some sort of having an attitude of, yeah, let's innovate, do it internally and all that. But many of them have also branched out by acquiring some of the smaller players and then integrating that into their own manufacturing processes and launch. But I believe there's going to be more of that and probably more partnerships as well. And those partnerships are very important, especially between manufacturers and launch service providers and launchers. We're seeing a lot more brokers asking themselves, well, where can I find the next opportunity for my clients to fly? Well, oftentimes the manufacturers haven't thought about this when they start building the satellite, and then they build a satellite. It's great, but then after that, the client can't launch. So there needs to be more of the partnerships and discussions between the two of them so that they can actually increase that. And that's why we also predicted that this year, at least 2 launchers in Europe will actually establish themselves and get going, go to orbit, and therefore breaking the Ariane 6 monopoly. And that's a good thing for the industry.
I agree. More launch capacity is better than less. I completely agree, no matter where it's from. So well said. Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you all. We covered a lot of ground. I want to thank you for your contributions to our piece. For their audience, we have this article on our website, 15 predictions. We can certainly go deeper on all of them. So engage with us, ask us questions. We'd love to have a dialogue with you. Thank you again, Claude, Antoine, Lluc. If you like the Analysys Mason podcast, would like to subscribe, go to our website. There's always more content on this. And we'll see you on more space podcasts throughout the next year. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Take care.